Well, welcome everyone to Matt and Kevin. It's not Monday mornings, as you guys probably know by now. I had someone actually message me a couple days ago and say, "Hey, where is Matt? What is? I miss Matt on the show. We don't see you guys on Monday mornings."
Common,
I
yeah,
think
common,
yeah,
common.
he just didn't notice that we do live shows now that are typically we've kind of been doing Tuesdays, right? I think we've been doing Tuesdays for a bit, but it just didn't work out this week to do Tuesdays. So we did it today, which yeah, we kind of wing it when we can, and we love to have you guys here and hope that you will join us in the comment section. Actually, I gotta get that comment section up on the screen. Um and yeah, I mean, Matt, I guess you know the topic, of course, since the last time we
Mm.
spoke is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I've purposely not spoken about it for a week. I think that's just, in my mind, the appropriate thing to wait. And I don't know, showing a little bit of respect for someone who just got killed. Um, but I think it is interesting. We don't want to dive really into how it happened or what happened. But I'm really curious your thoughts on what you think this is going to do to affect the atmosphere, the temperature in America, and if you think it's going to be a big thing or not. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's so hard to tell. I think it was a week ago today, and
Yeah.
I remember I had left work, and usually I don't use my phone at work, so I had left work, and I checked my phone, and I saw a quick caption, and I saw a quick video, not the video that we're accustomed to seeing, but a clip from the crowd. And my first reaction was no big deal, really. For some reason, that was my thought. I thought maybe he just, I don't know, maybe somebody shot and missed, maybe somebody hit him in the hand and ricocheted. I don't know. It wasn't until I saw a closer up shot that I was like, wait, like he really was just taken out. And even the moments after were very confusing. um People were saying he's alive and receiving blood transfusions, he's already dead, they're waiting to announce it. It's just so funny how in this day and age of social media, how news is delivered to us in a very, very, very different way. I mean, you remember, Kev, when we would if anything happened like that at all, your only option was to wait for whatever one of the three main news broadcasters aired on their programming. And now we just click on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and we see a continual feed. I mean, there's some disclosed TV on Twitter is very quick reporting and very fast and very um, uh, they post frequently. So with angles and videos and all these sort of things. So I still myself, I have still have different opinions and thoughts about what even happened, what it means for us in the future, and maybe what powers that be intended to mean. I think it's a difficult question because I think I have not fully. I mean, not that I might never even draw any of these final conclusions, but I'm keeping my I guess you can say my mind open to the fact that I guess I shouldn't say to the fact, but keeping my mind open to the reality that it might not be anything they're telling us at all. My inclination with all of this is that it was not a 22 or however old he is young man who climbed a roof and shot and left. I don't know how much I buy that narrative. Could it have been? I'll leave that option open. Like maybe what we're being told is true, but I'm very suspicious. And I think something that I know your main question was where do you see it kind of taking us in the political future, but if you notice, if you want to label the left and the right doesn't do what the left does. There's rallies and I
Yeah,
guess
there
you could
weren't any
say vigils.
riots. There
Right.
weren't any
There's no
riots.
riots. The people
Yeah.
had a great there were a lot of
Yeah.
rallies over the weekend and all of that. But it poses a lot of questions too, and I think in a good way. And I'll let you comment, and then I'll chime back in. I think it poses a lot of good questions as to what Catholics believe and profess and ought to adhere to, and what so-called conservatives profess and believe and ought to adhere to. And I think it really, because you hear him labeled all of these sort of things, people might not be familiar. What is a fascist? What is a Nazi? What is far right? All of these things that people tend to throw out there without having much of a working definition of it at all in the first place. I think it might bring a lot to the conversation of what does it even mean to be conservative or a feminist or feminine. And all of that, but anything you want to say first, and then I'll.
I think maybe the biggest thing that I've taken from this, for myself included, is how important it is to watch what we say publicly. And you're seeing this with the people who are rejoicing, after his death, and which is obviously insane. But they're getting fired and getting ostracized. As I think, at least they should be ostracized. I think that's the right way to approach it. But I think that it's going to change some things. I think there's going to be a shift from I don't know, just how discourse is handled. And I think that also, on the other side, if you look at how Charlie Kirk was going out to these events and, outside and to, having people come and join him at colleges to discuss whatever they wanted.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be able to happen anymore. I think I just for security issues. I don't know. I think you're gonna see a big change, and I think it's interesting that it happened on September 10th. And as Matt W here says, also the same week that Ukrainian girl got killed. I think I here in Germany, feel a shift similar to the one I think that happened at 9/11. Just in I don't know, something changed.
People have said, like, what do you compare this to for the Zoomer generation? Like, what is it? Their JFK? Is it their 9/11? Is it things that having lived through 9/11, you and we've talked about this many times, Kev, like the days that followed, or where our culture went following that day. What kind of magnitude does this have to the younger generation? And I have seen a lot of people come out and say, I'm radicalized now, or I'm more conservative today than I was yesterday.
Right.
For me, and I think if you, again, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, if you talk about a lot of the things conservatives promulgate, a lot of that is with odds with Catholic teaching. The church condemns freedom of speech. The church condemns can tolerate it, but freedom of religion. A lot of the things that conservatives celebrate are condemned doctrines of the church. So I think there's a lot of merit in a lot of what he stood for, a lot of traditional family, protecting and defending unborn life. And I think that you'll see a change in that direction. But I think it's also important, too, that to note, at least anyway, as Catholics, that a lot of the things that are pushed by this conservative machine are not authentically Catholic. And I think that it opens up the conversation, I think, for a lot of people, which I think is good because, my opinions have evolved greatly over the years from learning and studying and being heavily influenced by so-called conservative media. I mean, to think that I once considered Ben Shapiro a conservative, like you just develop your views and you learn more about where you err and where you hit things right. And I think that a lot of what is happening now is people are having these conversations. And for me, I've talked with a few people about it, and they have said, I see what you're saying with this. I get your point. I think it'll be a good shift in a moral direction, but I think we should be careful too of not celebrating Republican values and things of that line. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think celebrating. I'd say you don't worship them. You don't. I think you give it with a caveat. You say, hey, look, what Charlie Kirk stood for. I think in general was good. There are a few things obviously I don't agree with. I think he generally supported Israel and whatnot, but. And I think that I typically disagree with that. But in general, yeah, he stood for basic morality, for the right to life. He stood up for family values, traditional values. He said men should be men. They should stand up for their families, protect their families, and work hard, etc. And I think that is a good message. And I think, Republican, conservative values. Yeah. I mean, as you say, our whole Congress was just in Israel under the Israeli flag. I mean, just crazy
Why would
stuff.
that be?
I don't know, man. That is
Why
stuff.
would that be?
I am not a black belt. That I've admitted that on the shows with you. That stuff is very strange, and I really don't like it. Well, right now Trump is in, I think, literally as we speak, in Great Britain, getting paraded around, or it may have been earlier today, but just I don't know. Very strange, very strange world we're living in right now. But I do think, again, I think what Charlie Kirk stood for, I think there's gonna be great good to come out of his murder. And I wanted to read, before we get going, I want to read a part of what His Excellency Bishop Charles McGuire had to say
Sure.
about this, because I just think he said it really well. And I think that we're going to plan to have more podcasts on this topic, because I think it's a changing, defining moment in our culture right now. But I want to read just a part of this from Bishop McGuire. So this is from him. There's been a lot of buzz surrounding the death of Charlie Kirk this week. Certainly, it is a sad event. I will not discuss the issue here, but would simply like to remind you to trust our Lord's divine providence. This, as well as every event under the Lord's sun, is planned from all eternity, and some greater good will proceed from it. In the meantime, what should we do? Well, it is our obligation to pray for our country and our leaders, our obligation also to pray in our private devotions for Charlie's soul, for only God knows if he cooperated with a special grace and converted before the end. He continues on, but I think that was a very, very nicely said by His Excellency, and I think that's exactly right. That we should pray for his soul, for his family, for our country, and yeah, hope that, again, that the good things that Charlie did in his life somehow gave that special grace necessary to save his soul, as only God could have seen at the very end. But I think, yeah, I mean, back to the what can happen. I think it could be a really monumental change. I think Gen Z, and what's the one after, is it Gen Alpha? I think they could really
yes,
be,
and then Beta.
Be a big, is it? Oh, that's a terrible.
That's next. Beta.
I'm part of the Beta generation.
Look out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But no, I think this could be a defining moment. I really do, and I think it could be that his messages are going to be spread, a 1,000 times more.
So I think we need to be. I think there was a very charitable response from Bishop McGuire, and I did see on Twitter. I refuse to say I refuse. I saw on X. I saw on Twitter. There was a commentary from a pre-Vatican priest. This was a photo scan from over 100 years ago, and it did talk about how we can have that hope of a final. Maybe glance or a final glimpse of truth, and make that final interior act of the will to profess the Catholic faith and to believe all those things in that split second of time. So we don't know, and we certainly, people are, making their judgment. That's one thing that has been driving me, and I don't mind bringing this up, driving up a wall. The canonization of him is making my skin curl.
But canonization and the damnation, and it's like, guys, I mean, I think His Excellency says it so well that it's like, hey, let's just trust in God's divine. God knows best. Pray for his soul, because I mean, certainly, I cannot. He didn't go straight to heaven. I think we can say that pretty confidently, right? So if he is going to go to heaven, he's going to go through purgatory. So let's pray for that. Pray for his soul, and yeah, why on earth are we judging either way? But you're totally right. I mean, just saying, yeah, he's a martyr for Catholicism or anything.
It's impossible.
No, that's not.
A heretic cannot be a martyr. And I think it's funny, because sometimes there's this divide, and I have experienced it myself, and I have failed on a multitude of attempts where we sometimes divide our Catholicity from our politics, where we think, and this, I couldn't be more guilty, where we think men like, I don't know, again, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, whomever, are the big voices for conservatism, where a lot of what they teach and a lot of what they say, when weighed against the book Liberalism is a Sin, which I know you've read, and I know a lot of people on Catholic Twitter have read, is quite a contrast from what we know Catholicity to be. So Sede Picante would love to chime in. I see it here. He said, please let me in. Please let me. Yeah, please let me come in. My point is first, it's impossible for him to be a martyr, and people are operating on this in on emotion in a lot of ways, and it's very hard to bring up certain truths in light of a very recent death, where we have to think about a wife and children without her husband and without their father, which is horrible and a pierce to the heart. Um, and just to think that I think Melania Trump posted this, that his children will only know stories of him. But I think that the objective here, and it's hard to talk about these things in light of it being so recent, only a week away, is that I know this ruffle feathers, but Charlie Kirk was a liberal. When you apply principles that he stood behind and compare them to Catholic teaching, it's very clearly laid out that that was liberalism. You know, and
Yeah,
he
I
was a
mean,
Protestant and he was a Zionist. Those are big checks. Now, I'm not judging his soul whatsoever. I think he had a lot of good intention, and I think that he truly intended to live a rightly moral life. I can't judge his soul, and I see a lot of good merit there. But on the paper side of it, many principles held by him and friends like him are unfortunately liberal. And it's not my people. I posted this on Twitter recently, and I again, with it being a week away, you do want to not maybe bring all of this up at this point, but a lot of these positions are, and we're left at not wanting to. You know, we think of them as these big conservative heroes, you know, and if only these kinds of men led our country. Um, it's by far from the perfect solution to our
yeah,
current.
yeah. I mean,
You
and
know what I mean?
obviously, I agree with you, but I mean, what's the other option? What's the alternative? You know,
Well,
I mean, what I mean, of course,
yes.
I would like to be president because then I could, install Christ as king of the country. You know what I mean? Of course, I mean, I think there are better options. I don't know, who is the best option right now. But I mean, he was, again, he was someone who I think actually did have, he loved America. I think he did love God. I think he was wrong, but I think he seemed to be heading towards the truth. He was praying the rosary apparently, and speaking well of Our Lady, which is a big thing for a Protestant. So I think he was moving in the right direction. I think we have to give him that. And I mean, in terms of liberalism, I mean, I just think that some of these things are hard to judge. I mean, that book was written back in the turn of the century, of the 20th century, and I think that it's not the same. It's just not the same. I'm not saying it's not sinful necessarily, but I mean, we're in such a different era. And I mean, I'm not saying sin's
Right.
subjective, but you know what I mean. Like it's not the same. I mean, the world is such a different place that to be quote unquote conservative, it's different now than it was 10 years ago. And so I think it is kind of like, at this point, it's like, okay, do you just say, okay, it's good to have this step in the right direction, or do you say no? We don't even like that step. We have to have it all at once. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, think about this. If let's say I see Father Geckel's coming here, and I see your mom mentioned something too, which I'd like to mention. But since you've stopped running for the papacy and are now eyeing the White House, let's say that you were going to decide to be a great Catholic leader here, and you enacted Catholic. Let's say you pulled a Queen Mary Tudor and revived the heresy acts, which she did. What if you revived the heresy acts? What would conservatives say to that? It's not freedom of speech. It's not freedom of you would get a big pushback from both sides, but the so-called right would be furious with that. If we enacted the laws of King Saint Louis IX, King of France, of blasphemy was punishable by the tongue, the right would lose their minds over that too. Those are just the things that I think of and principles that I compare of if we actually enact Catholic laws, we know that the left is going to just lose their minds, but the right would be furious too. They don't like a lot of that. How often has freedom of speech? I mean, these are principles of the revolution. They were Masonic ideas. They combated the monarchy of France's reign. The conservatives would lose their minds. And in terms of Charlie Kirk being a Zionist, he spent most of his political career defending the horrible actions by Israel, saying that they were not happening, saying that we were being misled, covering up for a lot of their very unlawful and evil military action in the Gaza Strip. basically saying that they were justified in a lot of that. And I think his he is on tape. I've seen that many times of Israel is a great country. And I think towards the end, it's hard to tell. There are people who broadcast all sorts of different things. But he seemed to be maybe lightening up a little bit, I guess, on the Israel thing, and
Yeah,
it
which is
sounded like
a
that
little
wasn't
scary.
so
Yeah,
wasn't so
yeah,
permitted.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
you
again, we're
know,
not going to go down that road of questioning. I mean, it's hard to say, but
sure.
yeah, I mean, it does seem very. There are a lot of very sketchy things about it, and this is interesting because I think this is a good point from Father Geckel, which I agree with. Those laws wouldn't be enacted in these times.
Well, right, because
Wouldn't
America's
Queen
not that
renew
kind of
those laws? It was
country.
only exactly. I mean, it is a country. It is what it is, and I mean, and I think
It's
again, it's I see this, I see it with you and others on X, especially where I think it becomes it moves in this direction of hatred of America, and the founding is only by Freemasons. And again, don't get me wrong, I am a Catholic monarchist through and through. I'm fully on board that idea. But I think the idea that it's just purely evil, and it's just, I just don't think that's true. And I mean, I just think again, America's freedoms, etc. Even if you say that they're contrary to the faith, they've also allowed for there to be more traditional Catholics than anywhere else in the world. And I think
of course, of course.
we can't just skip over those things. I mean, just condemning them, they are contrary to what the church wants, obviously, but they're also better, as Father Geckel said earlier on, they're better than the alternative where you have a government, say, like,
Hmm.
Mao in China, where you couldn't say anything. So I mean,
Right.
freedom of speech is better than no speech at all, because then the faith couldn't be preached whatsoever.
Yes.
So
Right.
so I'm not saying it's the ideal, but it's also not the greatest evil.
Right. No, of course. And I what Matt W. read here, American conservatives are revolutionary I agree with that. There are no conservatives in American politics. I agree with that. I think somebody like Pat, I've mentioned him last week, Pat Buchanan was very close. I think he had uh, uh, um, a lot more right than many of the others. But I mean, yeah, some of the founding fathers of our country were Catholic, and they received no condemnation from Rome. 300ish years ago, and there never really has been. I know Pope Pius X even spoke highly of a lot of us, and I think the American people as a whole are genuine. Not always, of course. You have your bright spots and your lower spots, but genuinely of pretty goodwill, and many of them do. Many of, not all, but many do try to follow the right order of things and all of that. And I don't think that freedom of speech in this country should be suppressed in the sense that it should be enacted because maybe what if Sharia law reigns here or something, but the principles in and of themselves are still not good. And I think we have to work with that and work through that. I think it's very difficult for um, a country like ours, whose essence is a revolutionary spirit based off of Protestant liberal ideas, to ever enact truly authentic Catholic laws. I think it's very, 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 very difficult. So we protect what we have, right? And we saw this happen recently, where we weren't allowed to go to mass or whatever. So you or the contraception laws, that have been passed. But so much of our government has not done as good work, as nice work, with a lot of these things, and we're kind of stuck in the middle. And a point you kind of made earlier too is we have moved so far to the left, I think, in a lot of ways, where Democrats of 2008, who you and I might have sworn we would never vote for, are now the Republicans of today, and we're told we have to vote for them. And I view a little bit. I see that. I see that more clearly now than I have in recent days, and
But
it's
see,
hard.
but that's
You know what I mean?
not. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think that politicians now are 95% awful and corrupt and not, quote unquote, even conservative. But that's not the point, though. So I mean, you tweeted the other day, and I kind of scolded you for it, because or you shared a Nick Fuentes tweet. I forget
Well, I don't know if
exactly
I
what it was,
saw.
but it was like, that what did politics are controlled, so there's no reason to vote. Something like that, pretty much. And I just think that's
Oh, Yeah.
So, I mean, again, the politicians we have, I think, are totally corrupt and bad. But that mentality, that's just a quitter loser mentality, and this is why really people are drawn, especially young people, are drawn to someone like Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk was a hopeful guy, optimistic guy. He wanted to talk. He wanted to, to get, just get things hashed out. Well, I feel like a lot of civic contests, God bless us, are out there just being like, it's all, we're screwed. It's all done. It's all, there's no point. It's all,
Well,
it doesn't, it's all controlled. It's all a show. There's no hope. There's no reason to care about anything. Just, go and sit at home and whip yourself. And that's just, I mean, it is. It's what a lot of the internet
what
sadists
if
seem
you
like. And it's not helpful. Why is a guy who's a Protestant, why is he seemingly out there fighting for at least some truths, while we sit at home and so many of us are afraid to make the sign of the cross in public?
Hmm.
I mean, that's shameful, isn't it? I mean, well, why is he not afraid to speak what he believes, while we're just kind of like, oh yeah, oh, who cares? Why aren't we evangelizing, Matt? Why aren't we going and trying to convince people that, to become Catholic? If we're so convinced that we have the truth, and that ex ecclesia nulla salus, that we have the only way to the truth, are we just okay with everyone around us going to hell? I think these are really serious questions to have.
Hmm. Well, I think if you think about even take the elections of the last, I don't know, 20-ish years, there were a lot of people saying, like, I guess I'll vote for Bush. Pat Buchanan talks about this in his book. He says he's had people come up to him and say to me, this is Buchanan speaking, I want you to win, but I guess I have to vote for Bush. And it always seems like these actually solid candidates that are actually really, really, really good don't get anywhere. And someone that I could think of now, I have put my faith in a lot of them, and they've disappointed me multiple times. So I hate to say that's our guy. And the other night, Nick Fuentes said Thomas Massey's our guy. I hate calling any politician in DC, quote unquote, our guy, better than our woman. But ha ha. But maybe nobody even heard that. Though I tried to be funny. Maybe but what was I saying? But I think someone like that, they don't get very far at all. It's always like, I guess I'll vote for Bush. I guess I'll vote for Bush. I guess I'll vote for McCain. I guess I'll vote for Romney. And it just like that's to me is a bit more deflating than taking the position of, I don't know if either one of these guys truly aligns with me and what I as a Catholic stand for. And I think we are justified to some degree of withholding our vote. And I think there are some
Yeah, from an
good.
individual candidate. But so do you think Pat Buchanan would just say, yeah, so just don't get involved in politics?
No, I don't think he would
Obviously
say that.
not.
I
The
don't
guy
think he
was
would. I don't
completely
think he would
involved
say
in
that.
politics. So my point is, he's not being a black pillar. He's saying, yeah, we have real problems here. We have bad
Mhm.
people being elected, which I completely agree with. I mean, again, like I said, I think 95% or
I think we
more
should.
are really bad, but that doesn't mean you just give up on it. Anthony Rattrad here saying too. I mean, maybe our votes don't matter. Are you sure of that? Are you sure? Is it just all rigged? Are we in the matrix? And if we're in the matrix, then yeah, why do we care? What's the point? I mean, it is all just a sham and a game. And if that's the case, then yeah, get off of public discourse, get off social media, and go and pray and live a good life. And I think that's fine. But the answer is not to get out of politics. The answer is to go to the primaries, vote in the primaries, vote locally, and actually care and pay attention to actual candidates, rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to vote one time per year, or per 4 years, I should say, for the president, when it's already too late, when it's only Trump and Biden.
Yeah, and I think it is true that I don't fully, and I've mentioned this before, I don't believe that there are men sitting in a tower with strings pulling everything. But do I think that there are bigger, larger bureaucrats who have a lot more influence than I think we might realize? I do, which is why, and I think I hate to give him credit here, but I think Putin was very right when he said it doesn't matter who it is because the men in the suits are the ones who run the country. And I think who we vote for president does have influence. And I think we have seen that in some positions that have been taken and whatnot by both recent presidents, but I think overall it's not as powerful and not as significant as we'd like to believe. I mean, if you think about one issue, how much did Trump get on mass deportation? That was a big, big, big part of his campaign, where we were basically fed the idea that we were going to have almost to the level of knocking on doors and getting these people out of here. I think it's pretty safe to say that that is completely flopped in a number of ways. So I don't want to call it.
According to polls, most Americans are upset with how far he's gone with it. So they think he's gone too far with it, because he has gone to restaurants and to picking fields, and stuff, and picking up people. And a lot of people are unhappy with it, because
I think Obama,
a lot of Americans actually did. I think so too. But a lot of Americans actually just want him to get rid of people who are violent and want to close the border. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's what I want, but that is seemingly what a lot of polls are saying. And if that's the case, then I don't think Trump necessarily needs to go and do that. And I think it's a legitimate question also about the economy and who's going to do those jobs. Again, I mean, we laugh about it, but it's also true. I mean, I think the young people, I can tell you, in Germany here, young white people don't want to work. They don't want to work. They just don't. They don't want to do a job. They don't want to do the hard work. I'm not even just saying hard work. They don't want to work at all. So, I mean, I don't know who's going to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a very multi-layered question, though. The jobs that people don't want to do is because they're getting paid not to do it. They're receiving Medicaid, they're receiving food stamps, they're receiving all of this funding. So why am I going to go and work? So these are the jobs that are going to these immigrants. But I think I see. I'm trying to read the comments as well, and I agree a lot. Yeah, very good. I agree a lot with what I think Portagusi it just left the screen. Where'd it go?
I think I can pull it up.
Oh, I see it here. Well, saying I don't see a point. No, not that one. That one might be good too. Saying this one here, saying I don't see a point in voting in the elections as the system stands now isn't the same. I agree with this one here. It's not that it's complete, everything is hopeless, the world is bad. It's that if we do wish to stand on our Catholic principle, I know. Also, let me say, I'm not condemning people who do think that it is a right thing to do to vote. I'm certainly not saying that. But I think that we can also certainly make a good argument for people who would choose not to. I think that is one to be had, and it's not one done out of I've lost hope, everything is bad, everything is gloomy. I think it could be said where someone might say, in reason, I'm standing firmly on my Catholic principles of things that are completely contrary to Catholic doctrine that the so-called the right promotes. They permit divorce, they permit contraception.
Then what's your answer? What do you do? What are you going to do to help?
Well, every time though, I think every time though, the thing is we've given them so much. We've handed our votes to the so-called right every time because of what you said. Well, I guess we have to vote for insert name. That it's just gotten to the point where like we're losing. And I think that's where we need to give them a wake-up call. And I think a big enough group of people saying, you know what, you're not getting. We could flip this to the Democrat Party, right? How many times I think they're right for Black people who vote heavily Democrat to say, you know what, you don't earn our votes anymore. We're not just going to go to the ballot box and check off the Democrat candidate because of our skin color. We're going to actually make you earn our vote. I think Republicans need to start saying the same, and they're not doing that. They're saying, well, we're just going to give it to Vance. We're just going to give it to Ramaswamy. Without saying, hey, these are things that are important to us that we want to see done, or you're not earning them. Because think about how much of the upcoming election, let's say it's Newsom Vance, people are just going to give it to Vance. A lot of the right, a lot of conservatives, without actually looking deeper at a lot of issues. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said where Republicans, and I'm not a Republican, but conservatives or whatever, need to say, hey, we keep voting for all of these progressives here because, well, I guess we have to now, where it's not working out at all. in my mind.
But I mean, and again, I hear you. The two-party problem. There are a lot of
I
problems.
can't even read the comments. Drawing.
I agree with the
Sorry,
problems, but the answer is not just to sit at home and say we're out of luck. I just don't get that. I mean, like the answer then is to be more involved. The answer is to be more to look more into it, to be more informed, to make to try to start from the local level and go up. I just want to say, like your arguments are like there's a big problem from the bottom up with the structure of our country, and so I'm just not going to do anything. I'm sorry. It's just I think it's a pathetic answer.
Well,
I say it from people all over the internet, and I find it pathetic. I find it extremely unmasculine and un-Catholic. I hate it. I hate it. I've said this many times on the show.
Let's say
I just don't like it. It's just it is a quitter's mentality.
Let me ask you this. What if now who was second to Trump in the primaries? Nikki Haley did very well. I guess relatively speaking, Nikki Haley did relatively well. If we end up Gavin Newsom versus Nikki Haley, who would you vote for?
Yeah, probably Haley. But that's not the point. Again, you're using a straw.
Okay.
That's you're using the extreme form of the argument. I'm not talking about that. That's the whole point, Matt. I'm not saying that's not a problem. That is a problem. That's a huge problem. I don't like it. That's terrible. Trump versus Biden is a terrible, terrible thing for our country. But the point is, if you want to fix that, then you have to start somewhere below. You have to start lower. You have to try to fix it from the bottom up, rather than just saying, well, the top part of it is bad. So, well, our country's in.
I think there's just a lot of I guess I have to give it to him anyway. Sort of mental. How many people might stand on a lot of principles here, and then all of a sudden they have to say, "Well, I guess I have to say vote for Nikki Haley." And I think that is where we're losing. I think we're giving them far too much just simply because they're not Gavin Newsom or because they're not who we want. Now, I agree there won't be any ideal candidate either, and I think that is important to say. Unless it's you, Kev, there's no ideal. There's no ideal candidate here.
I better move back.
You better move back here and run quickly.
On that note, I want to get back to the original topic. Unless if you have a final comment.
No, it's just I'm trying to read through all of them, and it's hard.
Well, I want to do this one from Victoria because this is back on the original topic, which I think is really important. And she says people are watching the way we react to these things. Talking again about Charlie Kirk. We do not want non-Catholics to view us as incredibly judgmental, heartless, etc. Who would want to be a Catholic if they think it? If they think that is us?
Because I think.
And then she said real quick, she finished, ultimately, father, husband was murdered publicly. We need to lead with empathy. It does not mean we are 100% with them. I could not agree more with this. And I think, again,
sure, a
lot of the times we don't need to say anything. If you don't have it, as my mama would say, Mama, thank you for your comments here. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. This is a basic tenet of everyone's life since you were 2. If you don't have something nice to say, just don't say it. You don't have to say anything about Charlie Kirk. Just leave it, especially publicly. Again, that's what I mean by the public discourse. We don't have to say anything about what happened. And it's just leave it be. And I think especially that's why I really appreciate Bishop McGuire's message, because I think that was very empathetic and very Catholic, and I think that's the message we need to get across. And these Sede contests on Twitter going around saying, well, he's certainly in hell. Yeah, Victoria's totally right. I mean, it is a shock.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Someone like Charlie Kirk. Oh, I have. And then Charlie Kirk is, again, a guy who's not even a Catholic and certainly seems more charitable than many of us. What's that about? Well, why is that? Why is it that you meet your Aunt Susie from the Baptist parish, and she seems a whole heck of a lot nicer than most of the Catholics? She goes out of her way to feed the poor, etc. I mean, do we do those things? I think it's a real time for us to sit back and think, well, shoot, we have the quote unquote truth. What does that actually mean? What is a Christ-like manner? What is Catholicism? It's not just theology. It's not just understanding Vatican II. It's actually living the Catholic life.
Right. I do think it invites, and again, I think timing, as I kind of started with, I think timing matters too. you do want to be very careful of just being that rabid wolf, when people are certainly going through a tragedy. And this happened with Queen Elizabeth, like Catholics were very
Yeah.
quick to say she's a heretic, she's the head of a false religion, when there were a lot of Brits who were genuinely uh, grieving a loss of their head of state, who were a unifying figure. And I think there's a time and place as the emotions settle a bit and time passes by, we can objectively discuss these things. But I do think it's a good, maybe not now, we're far too soon, but I do think it is a good question to ask objectively at some point. Can a heretic lead people to Christ? That's a genuine question that I think, and it has an answer to it. Can they objectively, and I'm using that word carefully here, lead people to Christ? And it's a good conversation, and I've brought it up to people who I think are capable of having that conversation. There are people who are not ready to hear this yet, but I think if you are able to judge the person like, hey, I think we should talk about a situation like this, and they're willing to be like, interesting, good point, I think that's good too.
Yeah, but God works in mysterious ways. I mean, God. Look, I've met quite a few young men here in Europe who came to Catevacantism, whatever you want to call it, traditional Catholicism, through politics. They came through it because they were searching for truth. They said the world is a mess. There must be something wrong. Where is the truth? And they searched and searched and searched, and eventually they found true Catholicism. So, what led them there? Was it a speech by Charlie Kirk? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying it was. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying he led them. I'm not saying he's not a Catholic hero or anything. Of course, I'm not saying that he wasn't. But
Right.
But there can be good things to come from men like him. I mean that God works through that. Now again, I'm not saying he is a saint or anything like that, but it can. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. So if someone is truly searching for truth, in trying to be good and moral and talking about moral things, there has to be some good to come from that. I'm not saying all good. I'm not saying it's going to lead everyone exactly to Catholicism.
But I think you can also,
it's still good.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think you could also say that there could be a lot of dangers it could lead somebody into too. I have seen a lot of people who were big fans of his, who say things like, I converted to Christ and I was saved this weekend. That's a very dangerous thing to say and to point out. So I absolutely see your point that it could open up a lot of people's eyes to our culture and the state of our culture, and things to say like, hey, you know what? He makes strong arguments on abortion. He makes strong arguments on marriage. He makes strong arguments on family. Those are beautiful and wonderful things, but it could also lead people to I just hit a button on okay, I thought I froze myself. It could also lead people to a lot of error and a lot of heresy and a lot of false hope, and a false faith and a false religion. I saw so many. Maybe you saw this meme going around: when I die, bury me in red because I have a Charlie Kirk rally to attend. That is a very difficult uh, thing to reconcile with what we know to be truth. And they mean well, and I don't want to be harsh on them or hit them over the head with it. But this is a difficult reality to face. That is not trad. That is not conservative. That is heresy. And and I agree with your point that there are he has a lot of merit to a lot of his views. But he can certainly lead people astray, unfortunately, into thinking that I profess Christ today, and now I think he had a rally. There was a rally in DC just over this weekend where people were raising their hands and saying, because of Charlie Kirk, I now profess Christ.
But that's good, though. Isn't that good?
I don't agree.
Yeah, but it's better than being an atheist. I mean, of course, I don't think that's not the final step. Of course not. But I mean, if he is bringing them closer to Christ, that has to be. How is that not a good step? How is that bad? What's the alternative?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like saying,
should they have gone and seen, I don't know, Bernie Sanders? I mean,
well, that's kind of like saying everyone should see a really, really, really bad Novus Ordo so they become Sede. I mean, I see what you're saying, but like, do we want the truth should objectively just be offered rather than these steps of you got to be a
Of course it
charismatic
should have.
Protestant
Who's going to
first.
do it? That was my point. Who's going to do it? Are you? Are you going to go to the colleges and tell the truth? Who's doing it? We don't even have a Catholic Church in, of course it's there, but I mean,
Yeah.
the numbers, the priests, the bishops, the Pope is not there. So who is going to go and tell people the truth? Why are we so willing as civic contests to stay as a small group and let everyone else go to hell around us? I don't understand that. I mean, that's not how we should be. Now, I'm not saying I agree you have to be Catholic to go to heaven, of course, but I mean, it's still, we there has to be someone out there trying to get rid of the brain rot and brainwash from colleges and from liberals, etc. And if you and I aren't going to do it, I'm glad someone like Charlie Kirk is going to take people at least a step farther. I wish it was someone like St. Francis de Sales, obviously. I mean, yes, please, God, send us a St. Francis de Sales. But until then, I'll take whatever win I
Now,
can get.
how would you take Charlie Kirk? He was on the Michael Knowles show a couple of weeks ago, and he actually said, "Don't lead people to Catholicism." This is on video. Lead them to Christ, not to Catholicism. These were his words. And as Catholics, our eyes should be very widened to such a statement, because people think the two are, very separable here. And I think the point that him and a lot of others make is that if I just profess the name of Christ, then I am saved. And they're in a very difficult, very difficult spot because of that. Do you see what I'm saying? They are thinking that this is all I have to do now, and I'm saved, and now how their souls are in a lot of danger in that way too. And I get your point. Who is out there proclaiming traditional Catholic values on campuses? I agree. A lot of traditional Catholics on campuses, I won't say, maybe even say it is, but they're a lot off in a lot of their theology too. But
sure.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But Matt, you're doing the same thing you're doing with politics. You're providing a problem and not giving a solution. What's the solution? This is all I ever see from the black pillars. The problem, there's problem. Wah. The world's all terrible. We're all going to hell in a handbasket, and there's never a solution. It's just the problem. It's just like, yeah, it's all controlled. Everything's bad. But what's the solution? Again, I mean, I just think that we need to think bigger too. I mean, yeah, as Sede Picante is saying here, we don't have $100 million to pay for it, and that's really true. And Charlie Kirk was obviously
Israel won't offer
by billionaires. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I think that's a fair point. And I am not painting Charlie Kirk as a saint here. Certainly not. I as Bishop McGuire said, was pray for his soul. But again, I guess my point is that I think somehow black pillars live in like this, I don't know, like this almost utopian mindset. If the world is not exactly how it should be, then, well, why even care? And it's just not reality. It's not the world we live in. We live in a dark world. We live in a world that has fallen unbelievably far from God. But then what is it we have to do to bring it? And I think, you have to take steps sometimes that are not directly St. Francis de Sales converting people to Catholicism.
I think steps are, right. Steps can be taken, but they would be accidental. It's almost like saying that the Vatican II, you know what I'm saying? Like the Vatican II documents are good because they woke me up to sedevacantism. They're not good at all. They're evil. And I think it's hard to look at somebody who seems so kind and so nice and so virtuous and has a good family and good looking children and a good looking wife and all that, and say this is evil in comparison to homosexuality and Satan worship. I get that. But there's a lot of things to be careful of as well, because how many souls are being led into evangelicalism where they say, yes, I agree, you don't need to be a Catholic to be saved, you just need to accept Christ. And that's where you can have conversations.
But Matt, what's your solution?
That's where you can have conversations.
Okay, then have a conversation. Right? So again, you're just giving the problem. I'm not saying that's not a problem. I don't want people to be evangelical. Of course, I agree with that. I want them to be Catholic. But what's the solution? I mean, what is it that we can do then? How do we take that step? Do you and I need to go to a college and try to talk to these kids? I'm not even kidding.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the point. I mean, like if someone like him's willing to do it and get killed for it, he knew the risk he was taking. He was literally willing to get killed for his beliefs. Now, I'm not saying they're the right beliefs, but that's still impressive. I'm not saying he's a murderer. It's still impressive that whatever the beliefs you're willing to stick it up, there is something impressive about it. Not necessarily right, but impressive. Why? I mean, are we not willing to do that? Well, what are we willing to do to spread the truth, the actual truth?
Yeah. No, I agree with that extent. Like, why aren't we doing more than? But a lot of these people too, they get so big and they get so popular and they get so they become a household name because they're funded by all the wrong people. So they put the. In fact, APAC released a it's on their website. You can just go to apac.org, American Israeli Political Action, something like that, where they say 98% of candidates who seek office who accept our funding win. And pro-Israel is pro-America. If you go to their website, you see that. And so many of these people are bought and paid for. Truly, just go to the website and look. It's almost like in order to get to that level, you have to be paid for. People have to fund you with ginormous amounts of money, which is why, a lot of the true traditional Catholic, like Novus Ordo Watch, for example, and Mario's talked about this before, and with me and with others, and on his own channel, like they don't take off like Michael Knowles because they're not receiving the funding because they haven't agreed to cover certain things and receive the funding to do that. That money's not out there to us in certain ways.
Yeah, I think that's true, but it's also, Novus Ordo Watch is a very niche thing, and I think that I don't know. I mean, I think that it's true. I mean, money is a big part of the issue. But look at Jordan Peterson. I mean, Jordan Peterson came to fame as pretty much a nobody. He started as a college professor who recorded his videos and spoke a lot of true things. And the crazy thing is that then eventually he did get bought and he turned into a terrible version of himself. So it is fascinating though. But the point is with him, if you do have a good enough message and can portray it well enough, you can in an extreme circumstance actually get to a huge audience like him.
Yeah, and I Michael Knowles really missed an opportunity recently because in that same Charlie Kirk clip I was talking about, Charlie Kirk says, "What if I were to tell you that I don't accept any of the Marian dogmas at all?" And Kirk took such a lighthearted response. And then Kirk said, "What if I completely reject transubstantiation?" And Michael Knowles said, "Well, then I would say you are confused." And you could see Vatican II in action in a lot of these ways because they have to try to fit this ecumenical, partial truths and elements of truth into these arguments where he had a great opportunity there. It's almost like Bishop Barron and Ben Shapiro when he said it the privileged way. It's like these people are put on these platforms and really given an opportunity to do it. But I also think someone like us laymen, it's really, as you would know, it's really left to the hierarchy to do these things, and unfortunately, we're so eclipsed today. I agree with Sede Bekenta here. Candace Owens I find her insufferable.
Yeah, I have a hard time with her too.
I don't know. But no, I think let me just try to read here.
Well, and everyone real quickly too, with the whole Jewish thing, keep in mind, I don't know at all who did anything. No, nobody knows. But remember, the people who are spreading all the anti-Israel stuff, they're getting a huge audience right now. They know that is a popular thing. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's why they're doing it. Maybe they're doing it to spread the truth. I don't know. I don't know their intentions, but it's certainly possible that they're doing it because it is popular. And it is. Young people are eating up anti-Israel stuff on both sides. Nobody likes Israel, so they want to hear about it. So just keep that in mind.
Did you see Megyn Kelly? I forget what show she was on, but she was like, people under 30, Israel is extremely unpopular. And she's like, is that a problem? They recognize this. It's funny because the older generation was very, Israel's our greatest ally. You know, they're our friends. We stand with Israel because they stand with us. And there's such an inverse with the Zoomer generation of people, you know, kind of seeing a lot of truth as to what's going on here. So it does make me wonder where are things going to go. But I think there's still so much time for things to evolve. Things happen very slowly, in that way too. And you know, I think we'll have to see. I think there's a lot that will be not told to us. I think there will be a lot hidden. I don't know if you saw the text messages.
There's been some weird stuff. The text messages, Patel.
I can't believe. Yeah,
Patel,
see you in Valhalla.
How he's handling Epstein and the Valhalla thing and Pam Bondi.
That's one of the things where, like,
nightmare.
People say we're a Christian nation. I'll see you in Valhalla. Like, oh my.
Yeah. See, honestly, I don't find that a big deal. That was just a guy like saying like to a warrior. Yeah, I mean, it's. I wouldn't say it, but I get it. Like that was just like, that was more like a figure of speech than the actual, because the guy's a Hindu. I mean, so I don't think he actually literally meant Valhalla. It was just like, hey, one warrior to
maybe
another.
Maybe he did.
No,
I don't know.
I think it was one warrior to another. Okay. I'll see you in the warrior heaven. Yeah, I agree. Silly thing to say, but yeah, that one didn't bother me that much.
How would a proper country say?
But he just came out. He just came out and said that Epstein didn't traffic to anyone. Wasn't he convicted of trafficking? I thought he was convicted of that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So I mean, I don't know what the FBI is doing.
They don't want to talk about Epstein. I mean, yeah, they don't want to talk about.
They're a mess. That's it's unfortunate, but
I do agree with a lot of. It's so hard to read all these comments here. This is a busy one. Well, people are talking about it, which is great. I agree with a lot of what Fernando is putting in. I think Kirk saw America as a country to be a good Protestant Christian nation. I don't know if it'll ever get to the point where it's a good Catholic nation. I don't think the essence for it is truly there. I think it could be a Catholic country in the sense where, like, we are allowed to live freely and practice and be very open about our Catholicity. But I don't think it'll ever be. It cannot be that Catholic where the heresy acts are. It's not going to happen here. I just don't even see how that's ever possible.
Well, I can tell you it's certainly not possible with the mindset that we can never change politics or culture.
Yeah, I don't think that wouldn't be my mindset, but I wouldn't say that the answer is in Nikki Haley. You know what I'm saying? The answer is not in Vivek Ramaswamy. That's the, you know, and I think people are saying, people think like a Republican victory is a victory. It's shot us in the foot one too many times, I think, for where we want to be. You know, like, we're not moving forward by electing Vivek. Do you know what I mean?
I would agree with that. Now, I think JD Vance is an interesting one because he is, you know, Novus Ordo Catholic. That does make it intriguing. But yeah, he has his own problems, and I tend to like his politics fairly well. So I think he's an interesting one, but yeah, you know, in the end, yeah, it's probably going to be the same. You know, it looks like
they'll all go to the wall,
and yeah, it's going to go to the wall. I mean, I wish that's the one thing I'm really black-pilled on right now is the whole Israel thing. That's really weird. That's really strange.
Did you see what's hard for me? And then I do have to wrap this up with you here. But what's hard for me is that you are not allowed any sacramentals or any sign of Christianity whatsoever at the wall. And Rubio, who's supposedly this Catholic, removed his crucifix or his cross, and then can you imagine being told to do that and accepting it?
Wait,
you or I
sorry, I missed that.
Rubio, he removed his. You can't go to the wall and have any sacramentals or any signs of Christianity on you. So Rubio went there. They told him it's on video. You have to remove your cross. You can't go up to the wall and have a crucifix. And he took it off. So you mentioned here, you know, are we afraid to make the sign of the cross in public? Rubio took his crucifix or whatever it is, his cross. Either way, he complied.
Wow!
Imagine saying like, "No, I will not do that. I will not do that."
Yeah.
And you know, Netanyahu's sitting right there. You got to be careful. You know, he might blow up.
Yeah. See, I just real quickly, the Cardinal Imburito who annoys me because he can only talk in jokes, which I think is childish. But he says Vance isn't even a Novus Ordo Catholic. He faked a conversion to fake Catholicism. See, again, this is the type of thing that's just so silly. It's like, this is just, it's that whole idea that everything's fake. There's no reality. Nothing's real. I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I mean, come on. Sometimes things are actually as they seem. It's like Kate Middleton. I just saw her in a video with Trump, and I'm sorry, I like her. Now, I'm not saying she's my best friend or she's a role model. She's not a Catholic, I know, but like I like her. I hope she becomes the wife of the king someday. She will. And I think in many ways she'll be a good role model, and that's a good thing. And I think there are so many people out there just like, no, it's she's a horrible person, probably an alien. She's a lizard. She's actually a lizard person. It's just, and eventually it's like, guys, just look. I know
Queen
it's
Elizabeth
not ideal.
is
I wish she
reptile.
was. Yeah, exactly. I know. I wish she was a Catholic monarch. Of course, I wish that. But we just have to see the reality of the world as it is. I just think, I don't know.
I think here I'll close with this. You know how you had said that you're being a little bit black. Is it? I don't even know. I can't do the pills. I don't even know what they are. Well, black pilled a little bit on Israel.
Everything's bad.
And like, oh, it's this Israel thing is a little bit suspicious. There's a
yes,
and I do the same thing too. Where you think something is great, and then you learn a little bit, and you're like, ooh, I don't know about this. There are some very suspicious things with Vance, who he's been paid for and paid by, who have said you're going to be Catholic now. Is his conversion genuine? I'm a little suspicious of it, but that'll be for next week's show. We'll keep the listeners in suspense. That's next week. I'm not, and I'd like to say too, I'm not off the top of my head, I'm not completely fluent in every single one of these topics here at all, but there's a lot. If I research it and spend some time, because I have read some things about Vance that I find very concerning, and I don't know if I would vote for Vance, but that's for next week. I don't think I will. I'd say I don't think.
I'm not saying I would either. I mean, I think it's interesting. And I mean, this guy praying Catholic prayers in public. That's a good thing.
And then goes to the wall.
Yeah, but it's agreed.
Terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
Agreed. But it's a good thing to
Taylor
be
Marshall was
Catholic
the only one.
That's a good thing.
Taylor Marshall said, remember when he ran? He was like, I would not go to the wall. I appreciate that.
It actually kind of surprises me, honestly. But I don't know. You guys show me proof that the Vance is a fake Catholic. I mean, I'll be very.
Oh, I can gather some on that. Maybe we should do that for next week.
Because this was a pretty fiery podcast. I'd be interested to get another fiery podcast, because I'm just not a fan of these things where it's like, oh yeah, he had lunch one time with Peter Thiel, or he worked for him. It's like, yeah, because he was in that industry. I mean, come on.
It's an awkward industry to be in. I think, but we'll say that I do have to get running, but there's a lot we could still go on about, so maybe we'll continue this next week.
Fair enough. Let's do it. Everyone in the comment section.
All right.
You guys have been good. Most of you
with no super chats. After all this, we could have made millions today.
Conte gave us
he did?
$2. He gave us
missed.
Yeah, he did.
I missed $2. All right, we'll get a small coffee.
Sede Picante has actually become, now that I get to know the whole Sede Picante gang, I actually like him more than the other guys. So it actually makes me appreciate Sede Picante more, because the other ones are just annoying. But as Father Geckel says, we'll wrap it up with that. We should all be more charitable all around. I think that's absolutely. Everybody, God bless you all. You bring your puppets. We'll see you all next week. We'll probably plan for Tuesday at this.
Yeah, it's usually pretty good. I just wasn't around.
4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll plan for Tuesday. If it doesn't work, then click that bell to make sure you don't